Just after this episode was recorded and released, Oak Lounge Games, the publisher for Prestige, has announced they no longer will be supporting and publishing the game due to internal restructuring and financing. This means Prestige is not going to be launched on Kickstarter in June as indicated within this episode. However, Fritz Paull, the designer of Prestige, is pushing forward to get Prestige in the hands of another publisher or as a self-published title. We'll be following along the journey of Prestige, and we wish you luck with the game, Fritz, and hope to see it in people's hands soon. Welcome to Whose Turn Is It Anyway, your board gaming podcast where we talk about games, board gaming topics, and sometimes we even get the occasional guest. I'm JP, and I'm joined by Mr. James Davey, and today we're going to interview Fritz Paull from Oak Lounge Games to talk about their latest game, Prestige, a semi-cooperative civilization-style card game. So let's not waste any more time and head over and meet Fritz. So we're here. We're joined by Fritz Paull from Oak Lounge Games, who's the designer for their latest game, Prestige. So welcome, Fritz. It's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, anytime.
I've been a long-time listener.
Hey, great stuff. We're happy to get you as a long-time listener, and more happy that we're going to get into some really good conversations. But for those of our listeners who haven't heard of maybe Oak Lounge Games or yourself as a designer, Fritz, a little bit of an intro for them, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So if you have heard of me as a designer, I'd be rather surprised because this is my first published title.
There you go.
But I appreciate your eagerness for me as a designer anyways. But yeah, my name is Fritz Paull, and Oak Lounge is a small and upcoming publishing company here in the States that specializes in locally designed and manufactured games, just as a way of kind of trying to support some local economies. And we've had 2 internally published games at this point. We have Hero's Journey and Bootleg, but Prestige, which is the game that I've designed, will be our first Kickstarted game. So we're excited to be jumping into our campaign pretty soon. As a designer, I've dabbled with many ideas and have more games in the junk pile than I do ready to roll. But I'm excited to have an actual physical game published for once, and it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, like many designers we've spoken to, they've always got a load of things in the works usually, and lots of ideas forming even if it's not written down yet. Like there's just so many things, so many cogs turning, and it's really exciting to see. So
usually I'll tell people that I have X game on the back burner and whatnot, but at a certain point somebody told me, like, how big is your stove? Because you've got way too many back burners.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's the usual kind of thing with some designers. You can see the evolution of their ideas through their games as well, and you usually have like a little spin of that designer flair. So look forward to your future ones as well.
Yeah,
totally.
Me too.
So what was your kind of entry into the hobby then, Fritz? Like, how did you get into tabletop gaming and board gaming, which I'm assuming you have, hence you're designing games in that space. So yeah, like how did it all start for you?
Yeah, it started probably about 6 years ago or so. I, like most people, had played all of the classic games, Monopoly, Life, all those things growing up as a kid. To this day, I'm not sure if I've ever actually played Monopoly according to the actual rules, because my sisters and I always used to just make up our own rules, which was probably the start of my game design journey, even though I didn't know it back then. And then in college, I got into Catan, Dominion. I was invited by a friend to a game night to play Sentinels of the Multiverse. A bit of an older but classic game. And that was a lot of fun, but I had no idea the extent of what board games were until I moved out here to the San Francisco Bay Area. And I had a roommate who had about 200 to 300 games just sitting on his shelves when I moved in. I was like, what is this? And I lived with him and his family for about a year, and 2 to 3 times a week we'd break out a brand new game, or at least new to me, and just give it a whirl. And it just blew my mind with all the different types of games that were out there, the breadth of themes and mechanics that you could introduce. And from that point on, I started collecting my own games and really getting into the hobby. And then I started dabbling with design.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that moment when you discover the hobby, and I think I had that kind of similar moment at probably similar time, about 5 or 6 years ago. I'll say rediscover the hobby, because I've always played games as a kid, just like yourself. We dabbled in like the Hero Quests and the Blood Bowls, but then it never kind of went anywhere. And and you grow up and become a teenager and into your 20s, and you're doing all sorts of different things. So yeah, but when you rediscover the hobby and you kind of enter in, and like you said, that shelf of 300 games, and you're just like in awe, aren't you? You're like, oh my God, it's like, this is a world I didn't even know existed. And it's a form of entertainment that I didn't know I could get so much enjoyment from. It's amazing.
And then you try and buy every single new one that comes out, and then you realise, this is not sustainable. I can't do this.
It's like a journey, isn't it? Where you enter the hobby, you go, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to have everything. So you buy, collect, and then you realise you can't sustain it, and you have to cull, and you end up down the other side and go, right, refine my collection into something that I will play. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Was it kind of like a natural progression from over playing games to designing? Did you kind of fall into it, or was it always something that you kind of were interested in?
I think I was always had a mind for designing things. When I was particularly young, I wanted to be a video game designer, and I think that's what really got me into thinking about how things work together. And then I'm now a traffic engineer, or at least I do traffic engineering for my job. So I did not go down that route, but it still kept the mindset of like, oh, how does this work? And the idea of how things slot together.
And,
yeah. But I didn't really start designing a game until about 3/4 of the year into that time with that roommate. I was actually getting ready to propose to my wife, and I was building this really elaborate contraption that like opened up, and it was like a music box inside, and it had it was a lot. But I hadn't worked with wood in years, so I decided I was going to like try a practice project. And so I built a game out of wood for my roommate, just as like a Christmas present. And then it got into like actually designing the game itself, because a game that you can't play is really boring and not a great present. And that was the first game I ever tried building.
Yeah. Here's some
not
wood.
even a pretty pile.
No. That's
but yeah, I just started dabbling with it, and that's actually a project that is my biggest quote unquote back burner project is that one, because I have revisited that over and over again. The first iteration was probably crap. It did not play well, and it played for like 5 times the length that I wanted it to. But that was my introduction, and still something that I'm hoping to continue to work on.
Yeah. It's a good little gateway game by the sounds of it. So yeah, it's good.
So how did the wooden box for your fiance? How did that go down? Because obviously I'm getting the visions of, I don't know if you've seen the film, but Glass Onion, the Knives Out film, where at the beginning of that film, where everyone gets this box and it's like this really elaborate box, like a puzzle box. I'm just getting that vibe. I don't know if it's as intricate as that, but that's the vision I'm seeing, definitely.
It's definitely the vibe I was going for. The end product wasn't nearly as cleanly designed, and it did not incorporate puzzles. That would have been probably a little bit of a mean prank for me to pull. Like, oh, I'm going to propose to you, but first you have to solve this puzzle.
And if she didn't solve it, you'd both be kind of stood there awkwardly, just like,
Yeah, 6 weeks
but it did
ago.
go well. She said yes, and I'm now married. So
nice.
As well as it could go.
Congrats. Well, yeah, sounds like some work went in. That was good.
Yeah. Excellent. So talking about those hundreds of games that you've been cracking through then over your time as a gamer, which one would you say is your favourite? Which is always a difficult question to answer, but if you had to pick one, which one would it be?
This is a very easy question for me.
Fair.
My favorite has been and always will be Above and Below by Ryan Lauka.
Okay.
Which is the first installation of that like series of games that he has in the same universe that all have that same type of title: Above and Below, Near and Far, Now and Never. But Above and Below in particular is just something that has always captivated me. It comes with a nice little storybook that like you can explore these caverns. And to this day, I still am finding it's like randomly generated, so I'm still opening up to like new pages and getting new stories, even though I've played it probably 100 times.
Nice.
And the artwork has always just been breathtaking, and probably is a real influence on how I've designed games going out as well. It's just this like tableau builder with multiple facets, and it's really interesting. So yeah, there's plenty of amazing games out there, but I think I'm an oddity in that I definitely have a favorite.
No, it's quite good. I mean, the fact you said that's an easy question to answer, and we ask this question of every guest that we have, and I think it's kind of half and half actually. Some people are like, bang, straight away, I know exactly what it is because it is my favorite game. But some can struggle. Some can kind of go, well, it just depends on mood. Because I'm like, if you ask me on Friday, it's this, and if you ask me on a Monday when I've had a bad day at work, it's that. So yeah, it's always
it could be rotating. We don't like playing something for too long anyway, and it kind of it evolves with you.
Yeah, 100%.
If you were to ask me my second favorite game, I would have a much harder time.
Maybe that's what we should start asking people.
Yeah, what is your
probably quite a good one actually?
Yeah. What is your third favorite game? Like, let's put you on your toes.
What about the 17th?
Yeah.
Oh dear. So the games that obviously you got your favorite, but like, are there any kind of games that you've been playing that you are enjoying kind of right now, like recently, that's been hitting your table?
Yeah. I've been exploring the outer rim of the Star Wars universe.
Nice.
Star Wars Outer Rim, which has been great, playing on my nostalgia of like being able to fly around with Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon, which has been a lot of fun.
Did you get the expansion as well?
I did not. That's on my list, but I've heard that it really enhances the game.
Definitely.
It does. It really does. So.
Yeah, and then Tapestry is another big one that I've been bringing to the table a few times. I really enjoy anything by Stonemaier Games, but I love Civ Builders in particular, and just the variety of different civilizations that they created in that game has been really compelling, and I just want to try them all in different combinations. And then Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove is probably my wife and my favorite game.
That's the one I've not heard of.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah,
either.
What's that one?
It's a bit of a niche. It's an interesting take on a theme. You're playing as orphans in this dreary little town, trying to avoid the boogeyman, and you essentially win by pushing your other orphans into the boogeyman so he doesn't get you.
I love board games. I love that.
Yeah.
Just like, there's no theme.
Why
There's
is that a
nothing
theme?
there's nothing off the table though, is there? Like, that's the thing. It's like, I've got this idea, and this is what
some
we're gonna
things
do.
probably should be, but there is nothing off the table. Yeah.
Should be, but no, I just love it. I love the really wacky out there themes in games sometimes, and they're just fun. And
yeah, definitely.
But this one in particular, the theme is kind of weird and wonky and kind of dark. But as you look closer, so you lose the game by drawing a boogeyman card, but each boogeyman card has a different piece of artwork to it. And what we've just kind of figured out is we think the boogeyman card is supposed to actually be the boogeyman is a like social worker trying to rescue the orphans, which is just kind of like a cool little twist that you get afterwards. Because all the time, like, you draw the boogeyman and you're like, oh, I lost. But then the boogeyman is like holding an umbrella over your character so he doesn't get rained on, and like taking him in a car. And it's just like these orphans have built up this like, it's the boogeyman in his trench coat and hat, and he's out to get me and eat me. But it turns out that it's actually just somebody trying to rescue them and help them. I think that's
all down to perception kind of thing.
That's clever. I like that. That's clever. So that's the imagination of children and the fear, and then manifesting this persona as this evil creature, and it's just some guy trying to do his job, you know.
Well, it's quite like the game I was trying to design, which is about the basically an orphan, but in the Victorian era, and it's all about his perception of what's kind of evil and what's good is completely different, and his emotions that run through. But yeah, that sounds good. I like it.
Yeah, there's a little hint there. So Davey's got a bit of a design brain as well, haven't you, Davey? You do a lot of percolating of ideas, but we've had this conversation before. It's like, we need to get some of these out, man, and we need to get them. we need to start prototyping and stuff.
Yeah, I know, I do. It's just I'm an ideas man, but I'm not really a doer. That's my problem. Whereas JP's the doer, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Well, that one sounds like a winner. It sounds like at least something that'll hit the table for me and my wife if you ever publish.
Yeah. It's something that's been in, because originally I was into computer game design and I did a course ages ago. But yeah, so then I kind of realized that I'm not very good at coding. It's probably never going to stick. And that was it was an idea that I changed over from a computer game. But yeah,
nice.
We'll see anyway. Who knows?
Yeah, we still got time, mate. You've still got time. So
exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Great stuff. Okay. Let's kind of move on to the main kind of topic of our chat then, Fritz, which is all about your first design. It's all about prestige. And like every question that you're probably going to get asked, what is prestige? What is it all about?
Prestige. It's a semi-cooperative city building game. With Tableau and resource management mechanics, which is kind of the hobbyist but boring way to describe it. Really shines when you look at the thematics of it. And the idea of prestige is you're at the dawn of civilization, and there are multiple tribes that were once nomadic and once at odds with one another, living in this valley, and they've decided to put aside their differences and build a great city where all of their people can thrive. But old rivalries die hard, and so you need to work together to ensure the city survives, it isn't destroyed, abandoned, or forgotten. But at the same time, if you succeed at building a great city, you want to make sure that you're the one remembered as its founder and not these other people that have come alongside you. So that's where the semi-cooperative aspect comes about, and you're constantly managing your resources to make sure that the city doesn't fail. Things like your happiness of the citizens within your city, as well as like the city's defense and the money available to build out the city. But at the same time, you're looking at how much influence you have over the city based on the number of cards from your tribe that your tribe has been able to bring to the table are present, and that determines who ultimately is remembered in the history books.
What made you choose the theme, and like what kind of led you down to the Tableau like city builder style? Yeah,
the theme actually stemmed out of a game that is not set in the ancient world, which is semi-spoiler, but not really. But it's from Horizon Zero Dawn, which the robot dinosaurs would probably tell anybody that it's not actually set in the ancient world. But the idea is like civilization has lost all technology, so the humanity has been brought back to the ancient world. And I just fell in love with this game during the pandemic. Somebody had given me their PlayStation, and I just spent way more hours than was probably healthy diving into this world that they had created. And the one thing that I loved about it was the city of Meridian. And I mentioned I'm in traffic engineering, and I do a lot of work in the city planning realm. And I was just kind of blown away by this beautiful city with great architecture that they had really thoughtfully incorporated. And I was listening to the people who actually designed the game talk about how they designed the city of Meridian that sits right in the center. And they talked about how without technology, you have to think about where everybody wants to be in a relationship to each other. So the markets want to be next to warehouses, want to be next to gates so that you can bring in all of the goods. And then the guards want to be near the markets as well to protect the people. And that just kind of got me thinking about like, oh, that could be a great Tableau builder. Just the idea of placing things next to each other in a way that they are happy with. And that's just kind of how it started. I just started thinking about it. The first iteration of this game was actually a spreadsheet, which sounds really boring, but was really fun to make.
Gotta start somewhere, yeah.
So I just created all this list of all these ancient buildings and was like, what do they want me next to? And just assign different effects based off of that thematically. And then eventually whittled it down to make sure it wasn't overwhelming and
make sure it has a kind of flow to it as well, yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of evolved from there.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that.
So I will like to say that if you're expecting a Horizon Zero Dawn game, this has nothing to do with it. It was just inspired by an interview of the designers of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, it is a cool little theme. The whole where the world's been wiped out and it's so long that you can't even remember that. It reminds you of it's kind of like the Aztecs in some ways. You're like, how did they build that, or the pyramids? And maybe that is encompassed within our own world as well. So it's a cool theme. I like it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great that you kind of took inspiration from that. And having played the game, because I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be teached by yourself, Fritz, the other night, and I can totally see how elements of maybe your job as well have kind of interceded into this, and the whole card playing, tableau building, the fact that actually it matters where you place the cards. It matters if you're placing them to the left or the right, above and below, and the positives and negatives that can have on your civilization, and just the thinkiness around that, the puzzle that creates is, I really want the money, but actually it's going to come at the cost of happiness, or we really want to make people happy, but maybe we're going to make our city less defended, and things like that. It's just, definitely a really intriguing part, rather than just I'm putting a card down and doing a thing. It's I'm putting a card down, but specifically here, and I've got to be really clever about where and why I want to do it as well. So it's great.
Semi-co-op as well is quite an abstract market in some ways. It seems to work really well. What made you lean towards more of a semi-co-op rather than a competitive or fully co-op?
Yeah, this is where I have to admit that when I made the game, I didn't know what semi-co-op was, and I had to have another designer who was playing it was like, "Oh, you made a semi-co-op game." I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Same thing with Tableau. I didn't know what the word Tableau meant until somebody was like, "Oh, you made a Tableau builder." I was like, "Oh, I just called it cards that I put next to each other." But
it was just kind of a natural progression then, yeah? It was just from everything you've worked out, it just kind of it formed itself.
Organic,
Yeah.
I think from this, from its starts, I always knew that I wanted somewhat asymmetric factions going into the city to build together. And that was just a really interesting mechanic in my mind of these diverse groups trying to work together, but also looking out for themselves. And along with that, I knew that I always wanted the city to be able to fail, because that just made sense to me thematically. Like so many cities in the ancient world just failed for one reason or another, and it's really hard to maintain. And if a city fails, it makes sense to me that means everybody loses.
Yeah.
But I also didn't want it to be fully co-op. I do enjoy fully co-op games quite a lot, but for this particular game, I was like, I really want these factions to be working together hand in hand, but also slightly set apart. So there's a little bit of tension there. So only one of them can win. Was
it creates a little bit more replayability in some aspects as well.
Yeah, definitely. And with the different factions too, you can experiment and have all sorts of fun. Speaking of replayability, the game itself also comes with I think we landed at 230 unique cards, but you're only ever playing with 58. So every game is entirely unique because you're just randomly choosing from each faction and putting it all into a deck. And so every game is totally different. So replayability was a huge thing for us, and just creating a new city every single time was a really important step.
I think
efficiency and value. I like it.
Yeah. the thing that I took away from the game, and I think I said this on probably some of the social media posts, was you can always tell a sign of a good game. It's when as soon as you finish, you just want to play it again. Like you literally just like, can we just do this again? And that's exactly the kind of feeling I got. And I think one of the things that surprised me about it actually was that obviously the semi-cooperative nature of the game, which I think is really great actually in it, but it's the fact that you're sharing the resources. And I think I said this when we played Fritz, the coffers, right? You're sharing the coffers between all players. You have a shared pot of money for the cards that you're playing. So in the game that we played, I was Mr. Big Spender. and I was spending all of the coffers from the city going, I'm going to put this particular building down or that particular building down. and it came to like your go and Stuart's go, and they're like, well, gee, thanks, you've spent all of our money, and now what are we supposed to do? But I think also the things that we kind of reflected on as players of the game afterwards was obviously we just had the one play, so we were learning the rules and we're just learning kind of how to kind of get through the game from A to B. Was the fact actually having more conversation between us as players and encouraging that, saying, right, we really need more money, guys, for us to do, to get the city, to build up the prestige in the city. Who's got what? Who's going to help with what? And also maybe bluffing some of that as well, saying, maybe don't build your building right there, because if I can build a building, it's going to give us more, or X, Y, and Z, and then I can probably stitch other players up later down the line, maybe. But that's also going to come at a cost, because people won't trust you and they'll probably try and freeze you out of the game. So it's definitely, I think, and our first game it was quite quiet, apart from us mumbling to ourselves, oh, what should we play? But I think as you get more used to the game, used to the design and the mechanics, you can really lean into playing the players, if that makes sense, rather than just playing the cards. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I'm glad. Yeah, that's definitely our intention, is to really encourage player interaction, but also not make it purely a player interaction game. You've still got a tableau that you're building. And it's just when you need to, you have the opportunity to work together or to stab each other in the back.
Yeah, like every good semi-co-op game. that's what makes them so fun to me. Whether you're playing a Nemesis or a Battlestar Galactica or an Unfathomable or whatever, it's the fact that you have that hidden information. And not everyone knows everything around the table, and no one quite knows your intentions and motivations. And that's just the fun thing to play.
And everyone's got their kind of own little agenda.
Yeah. And it's something I've not seen in a game like this. Not to my knowledge, I've not seen it. It's very unique.
I guess in a lot of like Civilization or Tableau style games, it's usually either kind of got your own objective and you're just working against each other, and that's it. Whereas having the whole communal resources is a really interesting idea, because you're trying to help everyone, but you're also screwing people over from taking their resources, because it's also your resource. So it's it's an interesting idea, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing it.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the communal coffers were definitely one of the bigger points of contention early in the game, because some people would play and be like, it's a really interesting idea, but I just don't see it working. But it was something that I really wanted to hold on to. I really like the idea that all of your money is shared, because the theme is a huge thing for me, and it just made a lot of sense for the coins to be shared, that you have to decide together, or essentially punish each other if you're not working together to decide who's spending the coins. And I just thought it was really interesting and stuck with it, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I think it's balanced by the fact that you're not just playing your own cards. So every person has a hand of cards that has different buildings or units from each tribe, and it's kind of randomly given out. So at a certain time, you might not even have any of your cards, or you might be holding on to your cards until you can play them. So by spending the coins, you're not necessarily even spending for your own benefit. You're just spending so that you can get a card out of your hand. So it's got a lot of interesting little tidbits that as you dive deeper, you start to learn. And as somebody who's played 250 times, I guarantee I haven't learned them all yet. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you can't be truly selfish in the game, because you'll tank the game for everybody and you'll lose. So if you were to be that one at the table that say, I'm just in it for myself, I'm doing everything for me, you're not going to win. Like you have to work with others, and that's the good part of the design in my book, is that it's kind of forcing you to play along, because you have to, in order to progress the city, in order to reach your kind of prestige levels and end game goals and happiness and all those other things. But it allows for that little deviousness that you might like to tap into every now and then. So that's all good. I think the other thing I found playing as well is, obviously I made it sound like money's the be all and end all, And I think there are other cards in there, aren't they, Fritz? I forget what we call them, but they're not characters. What are they called? They're the ones that slot in.
The units?
Units, yeah. So you got the unit cards, haven't you? Maybe what are the unit cards all about?
Yeah, so from a mechanical standpoint, the unit cards are kind of your engine builder. So they offer effects on the city that last more than just their turn. Most cards, when you put it down, it's just dependent on what surrounds it. And you'll immediately get that either resource bump or you'll get to draw an extra card or something along those lines. But unit cards, they stay active. And as certain things happen in your city, you'll gain extra benefits so long as they're there. But from a theme perspective, these are the people that are working your city. They're your city guard or your city scribe, all of these specialized roles, and they're filling in and kind of breathing life into your city. And it also adds a little bit of an interesting back and forth or player interaction in that there can only be 5 active at one time. So anytime that you play a 6th, you have to decide which one gets bumped out, and that person loses that influence. So if you're pumping out somebody else's tribe, that can really increase the tension between the two of you. And also, if you keep playing the ones from your tribe, you're revealing which tribe you are. So there's always a cost to every choice that you make, but also hopefully a benefit if you play your cards right.
Yeah, and in that game, Stuart was, I think it's I forget the specific name, but the purple tribe, the religious tribe. I know.
Yeah, the priestly tribe.
The priestly tribe, yeah, and he was bluffing all the way through it. So and he played a blinder because he was definitely that tribe in the end, and he won the game. And trying to guess, like, are you the warrior tribe? Are you this? Like, you're playing a lot of the blue cards, so so it's definitely
Do they all lean towards having like a certain like victory condition as well? Then do they, or is it?
It's all the same victory condition, and I like to call it a light asymmetry to them, in that there's no special powers that comes with the specific faction that you're representing that you have to memorize. There's no new rules introduced by just the faction that you represent. But they each come with a deck of cards, and each deck is slightly themed. So thematically, just like the tapestry of the city that you're building, each one has specific buildings and units that make sense to them. So we have like the fishing tribe, the priestly tribe, the warrior tribe, merchants, craftsmen, peacekeepers. But there's 6 of them. Each tribe has its own offerings that it brings to the table. And some tribes are a little bit better at certain things, like the merchants are good at making you money, but they might not be so good at like increasing your populace. Or the warriors are great with defense, but they might not make happiness go up very quickly. So little things like that.
For different player counts, how does the game scale?
I think for me, I always love playing games at 2 players. So that's probably my favorite, but it feels pretty similar at 2, 3, and 4 players. Because essentially you're still trying to do the same thing. There's no added tension. And in particular, at the 2-player level, there's a variant that allows you to represent 2 tribes at once. It doesn't change how you play too much, except for the fact that there's more hidden information added that otherwise you'd struggle with at the 2-player count, because it becomes pretty obvious who's who at 2 players if you each only represent one faction. And it also gives you the chance to go back and forth between those 2 tribes. So ultimately, I think it scales really well. It's something that we were very intentional with in the design to make sure that it played well at all the player counts. And then the solo mode is actually something that was the hardest for me to design. So I went through a million different iterations. I'm actually really happy with the way it turned out, but it offers the most unique experience. I mean, it really tried to put you into the mindset of multiplayer mode. You've got multiple people running the city, and you're trying to be political about that with other people playing around you. But in solo mode, you're the sole leader of the city. And what does that mean for you? So in this particular case, it means guarding your reputation as well as the reputation and welfare of the city. So you're trying to battle all of these negative attributes that the people have assigned to you, like you're the warmonger, or you're the miser, or you spend money too quickly. And throughout the game, you have to change the public perception so that you're remembered well in the history books. as well as maintaining your city so that it itself is remembered. Otherwise, nobody cares about somebody who's great but didn't lead a good city.
Yeah, lost to the annals of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite aspect then, Fritz, of this game? Like, what's like, if you were to kind of zone in on one particular, whether it's a mechanic or elements of the theme, what's your favorite?
I really like the hidden stories that you get in the cards, and it's just trying to figure out why certain buildings next to each other have certain effects. For instance, I thought through a lot of these myself, but what I love hearing is that other people's interpretations as they play the game, because they're not written out anywhere. It's just, I thought about it, I transformed it into icons, and then other people get to interpret it. So when I first designed the game, the first effect that I came up with was for the fish market. And the fish market, you gain money if you're placed next to a water card, but you lose people if you're placed next to a home. And just the background in my mind of what that meant was you gain more money if you're next to the water because your fish take less time to get to you and they're fresher. But nobody wants to live next to a stinky fish market, so they all moved away. And just a million little interpretations like that. And just hearing what everyone else comes up with as they play.
People put their own little names and spin on things. Yeah. Yeah.
For instance, there's another card called the Sacrificial Altar, and if you place it next to a home, you lose populace. And the quote unquote official ruling of why that is because nobody wants to live next to the sacrificial altar.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I'll leave it up to your own interpretation as to why that happens.
Yeah. Soylent Green.
Yeah. where did Fred
That's
and
one
Joe...
food as well.
Yeah. Yeah, get more food. People have gone down. What's going on? You're right. And how big does the tableau get? Because I'm thinking in our game, I can't remember kind of the size of it before it ended, but it was 6x4 kind of that way. Is there a limit to the tableau? Can you just keep building and building out, or is there a cap?
There's definitely not a cap. I guess technically the cap is 58 because you do have a limited number of cards in the deck.
Yeah.
But I've never had a group play all 58 cards into the city. It almost always ends one way or the other long before then. I'd say 25-ish cards is probably about average. So right around where we were with our game.
Yeah.
And that's usually an end game condition, provided you survive the early stage of the game, which is probably the hardest to avoid the everybody loses conditions, which makes sense for an ancient city. That's the earliest stage is when it's not going to go so well for your citizens.
Yeah.
But also for us makes it work well because, if you lose in the first 3 steps, you just set it up and go again.
That's true. I mean, the games are really quick anyway. I think you can literally just go, you know what, it didn't go so well. Let's have another crack at it. But I think because you got the core tracks that you're measuring, prestige and happiness in your defense and other kind of important metrics of your city, maybe talk about the different kind of events that can happen if you let your city slope towards the negative side, or maybe if you get your city more towards the positive side, because there's events in the game, right? There are things that can trigger. How do they work?
So events are points in time when your citizens are either really happy or really disappointed with your rule, and they either are looking to join in and help you build a great city if it's a positive effect, or they are blaming you for every problem that they have, regardless of whether or not it's relevant to you. So those are triggered at the start of your turn if you have a resource in usually the far ends of any of the resource tracks. These events can trigger. So some of the resources are a little bit more of a balancing act. So like defense, you don't want to go too high in defense and people feel like they're under martial law, but you don't want to go too low in defense or people feel as if they're not safe in their beds at night. So you want to find a median where you start to trigger the happiness events. But others are just like a straight line forward. Like obviously if people are happy with your rule and the happiness keeps going up, you're going to get more happiness events. And so what those essentially do is they'll present you with a situation. Some of the situations will present you with a decision, or they'll just present you with an outcome of how the people are going to treat you as their ruler. And they can really throw a game for a loop if you're not too careful, if you draw too many of them. Especially, there's another set of cards called the Invader cards, which you can draw if you have no defense, or you draw if you take too many discard actions. And those Invader cards can result in the destruction of your city, essentially. But I'm really excited about the event cards because we've also looped in some like content creators from throughout the board gaming universe who have written us some events as our guest writers, which is really exciting because
that's cool.
They're a lot more engaging of events than what I wrote.
What kind of difficulty is the game, would you say, then?
It depends on how you measure difficulty, probably. To grasp the concepts, I'd say it's a gateway style game. It's a little bit heavier than most classic games, but it's designed specifically so that anybody can really jump in. And after a few rounds, it really starts to click. In terms of survivability and how hard it is to reach a success, we have it at about 50-50 win versus loss, provided you haven't played 250 times like me. And then, like most co-op games, that's probably a bad number to have because you actually want to be losing a lot more often than you're winning. But since it's semi-co-op, we don't want everybody to be losing all the time. And then like that slim 10% of the time that you don't hit a loss condition, you actually aren't the winner. You're just the person who didn't lose as hard, I guess. So we aim for more of a 50-50 win-loss. And then depending on who you're playing against, it'll depend on how hard it is for you to beat them.
Yeah, so the other thing I kind of want to talk about or try to describe for our listeners, which is always difficult on the podcast, which is the kind of theming and artwork, because the art on these cards, they've got a kind of papyrus kind of style and look and feel to them, and actually on the cards themselves, you've got the buildings that you're placing down, but they're all done like very kind of artfelt brushstroke, as kind of specific style, and it's very beautiful. It's a very great choice. So was it a conscious decision, or did you have a very clear cut direction for the art on in this game, or did it just kind of happen and went, oh, that looks good?
I definitely leave that mostly in the credit of our amazing artist. We commissioned all of these pieces of art from an artist named Terry, who just does amazing work. They are like actual brush strokes. And what we did was we, instead of hiring her to make each piece of art for the cards, we hired her to paint 7 massive cityscapes. And we told her what buildings and units need to go into there. And she just painted them. And they came out wonderfully. And I really love her style. It really feels like it matches the vibe of the game. It's kind of calming, but also really intricate and interesting. And I'd say it's fairly unique. I don't know much about the art world, but I don't see too many artists pumping out artwork like this. So I'm really glad that we ended up working with her. But with these 7 massive cityscapes, what we did was we then broke them out into each individual card. So each cityscape was broken into 30 to 40 cards, depending on what use it has. And then that makes up each individual deck. So there's 6 tribal decks representing each tribe and a communal deck that's just like cards from every ancient city, like a well and a city wall and things like that. And then as you're building out your own tableau, you're essentially reassembling these massive cityscapes in your own unique way while intermingled with the other tribes, which is just kind of a really cool interpretation of how a diverse ancient city comes together, I thought.
Yeah, now you've said that, and having seen the artwork for the cards, it makes so much sense because you have that isometric kind of viewpoint of the city across all of the different kind of coloured factions and tribes that are influencing the city. So you're right, you're kind of building that picture back up, but in your own way, in your own style, and in your own influence. And yeah, I've not thought about that in that way, but yeah, artistically, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. So Fritz, tell us all about how we can kind of get our hands on Prestige. Like you mentioned at the beginning, it's coming to crowdfunding. When is it coming?
Yeah, June 2nd is the day that we launch it. It's going to be on Kickstarter. And yeah, if you feel free to find us and click that notify me on launch button, and you'll be one of our day one backers, which will be exciting, hopefully, if you like it.
Absolutely, and we'll put the link in our show notes so people can come and find you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and check out the campaign and give it a look, because it's a definite fun game. It's that, like you say, it's that gateway game. It's something you can literally play at the start of your gaming night and get everyone interested, and you probably continue to play it 3 or 4 times after that if you do, and maybe you won't get to your other big games that you were planning, because it's definitely an intriguing and exciting product. So
rather than a one more turn game, it's a one more game.
It's a one more game, yeah. and because you can literally blitz it out in 30 minutes or so, it's it kind of sits in that nice I'm not saying party game, but it's that nice lighter kind of game, but it still gives you enough crunch to make it really interesting. So yeah. Okay.
So I've got a little off the cuff question.
Oh, sure. Go for it.
You say you've been playing your game within your gaming group, yeah? Is that where you've been kind of testing it out, or has it only been a select few?
No, it's we've got about as many play testers as we have play tests. So I do have a gaming group that I'll play with, either online. There's a gaming group I have, or here in San Francisco we have a game designers meetup at once a month, and I've brought it to that several times, which is really cool. We all just get together and play each other's games.
That's really cool.
But at the same time, I've just pinged people, or people have pinged me back and forth, and we either swap games, or people who are just interested in playing new games that haven't been published yet. There's a whole crowd of them online, which as a designer, I absolutely love because that's really the most valuable thing is each playtest. And so a wide crowd of people.
So it's leading on to my actual question, which
I was going to say, where are you going with this?
What kind of gamer group would you describe your main gamer group then? Are you kind of the kinds, because us as a gamer group, we like to kind of not shout at each other, but we like to kind of, give each other a little bit of stick now and again, especially when taking our resources or exactly. So what kind of gaming group do you play in?
If I'm just playing, just for fun, not necessarily play testing my game. I think we're a bit more of a calm group. Just we're just playing, have fun, and the game is more of a medium for us to hang out than it is I'm here to defeat you. But I've definitely played plenty of games and rounds with people who have that mentality. My favorite people to play this game with are those that feel like if I can't win, nobody's going to win. And then just trying to battle them to make sure that you reach a victory condition, even if you don't win the game, because you just want to spite them.
We got a few of those.
Do not know what you mean.
See, that's why you asked the question, Davey, because it's a little.
I was intrigued because obviously I'm quite competitive, but I don't mind losing, and it's the whole experience of playing the game, and it is the social side of it as well. But I was intrigued, kind of what the game brought out within your group as well, and kind of the interactions that you may have. So
it's been a really interesting spectrum, because I'll play with some people who are like, "Oh, I want to play it like a co-op," and you could be co-op or competitive. That's fine, but I'm just gonna count it as a win if one of us wins. That's a really interesting mentality. And then others are like, if I can't win, you're not going to win. And I definitely lean somewhere in the middle of those two, I think. But it's been a lot of fun to play with people who come at it from different mind space.
Yeah. I think it's quite cool that it can kind of lean both ways. So if you want to be a bit more cutthroat, it will help enable some of that if you're comfortable as a gaming group to deal with that. But if you want more of the calm, I just want to build a city. I just want to build a city with my friends and have a good time, and not get into some of the stabbiness that can happen in certain semi-co-op games. It facilitates that as well, right?
Yeah, there's 2 variants at the end of the rule books as well. So there's a fully co-op variant. So if you don't, if nobody wants to play competitively, you can all have fun building a city, and it just makes it a little bit harder to do so, to kind of negate the fact that the tension of semi-co-op has been removed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if your gaming group is like really cutthroat, there's a version that I call City of Squalor, where basically all of your starting resources are just stripped from you, and you're really competing to like, I need this for myself. So there's a few variants that we've designed for those who lean real hard one way or the other.
Yeah, I think the gates of hell kind of thing.
yeah. Trial by fire. Yeah.
This is the first gate. Yeah.
Good luck.
Oh.
Well, that's great. Thank you for kind of taking us through Prestige and talking us through it all. But obviously had the chance to play, and it's definitely great fun. I'd recommend everyone kind of checking it out. But I think before we kind of wrap this up with you, Fritz, we have a little segment or a section of some episodes that we do on the podcast called Niche Number One. So if you've listened to the show, you'll know exactly kind of where we're going with this. And these are kind
I'm
of
excited to see what I get.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the some of the episodes that we do on this are just like our favorites, because they really just make you think about your collections, your experiences in these really niche circumstances, and you're like, oh my god, what am I going to pick? Which is kind of the point. So Davey, have you got the list in front of you?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. Do you want me to start?
You can start, mate.
Yeah. So we're going to go for, because it is leading off after the whole competitive thing. Favorite game you never win at, win rarely. You rarely win at, shall I say? Because it's.
That is all of them if I'm playing with my wife. But probably the favorite one would be, there's a game called Henchling, and it used to be called Minion, but it got renamed due to some copyright issues. But it's a really interesting designed game in that it's not very well balanced. And yet despite that, my wife can destroy me every single time. Like there's very little strategy that goes into the game. It's very lightweight. It's a lot of fun, and it's real quick. Yet for some reason, no matter which faction I'm playing or like how well the cards are being dealt into my hand, she always wins. And I've just come to accept that.
It happens to the best of us, unfortunately. Great stuff. I'll take the next one then. So your favorite game that was quickly overshadowed or replaced. So it could be a style of game or a certain set of mechanisms in a game that you really loved, and then suddenly this other game's come across and gone, that goodbye old game, you'll never see you again.
Yeah. I think the number one for me is there's a game called Subterra that I love. Yeah. I'd still play it quite a bit, except for one, it's really hard to find, so I just don't have it anymore. And that of course makes it easy for it to be overshadowed because you kind of forget it exists. But it also after like a few rounds of it kind of got a little old. Like if you're playing a few rounds in a single sit down, and that's just typically how like I play with my friends. So it just quickly got shuffled to like, oh, we'll come back to this later. And it just never came back.
Yeah.
But I'd still love to play it. It's one of those that's now on my list. Like, oh, I let go of it and now I want it back.
Go on then, Davey.
So I do the next one. Yeah. I'll lead on to the next one.
Take
right. Favorite game with terrible game components. Example for me would just be Terraforming Mars as the OG, I guess. But something like that.
That's a stock answer for most people, that one. But yeah, have you got one that comes to mind? Obviously, it's not. Sometimes you might feel a bit bad when you're kind of saying, "Yeah, I'm kind of hitting on a game because it's got bad components." But these are all opinions, right? This is what we think.
The one that comes to mind doesn't actually have terrible components, but components that after I got it didn't really make sense.
Okay.
And that's don't go in there. And I'm real quick to like jump onto a campaign if something really intrigues me. And this game had glow-in-the-dark ghost dice, which was like, oh, this is really cool. And like a dice tower that all these ghosts come out of as they're like glow-in-the-dark dice. But then I got the game and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. At least to me, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Because I can't play the rest of the game in the dark.
No, you're going to tell them, we're going to roll the dice, turn the lights off.
Turn the lights off, turn them back on again.
But it's really fun game. I love it. It's just I was like, oh, I got duped on that one, didn't I?
Yeah.
It's like they've used this for marketing and they've just got me in. But
You just need a bed sheet over the dice tower so that you can all put your head under after you roll the dice.
But ironically, you'd all look like ghosts, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Whilst you're playing the game with the ghost dice.
Playing the game.
Yeah, it's the sort
But I
of
will
thing.
say that game in particular also has my favorite components of all time. So it's really wide spectrum for that game because they have these little ghost meeples, and each one it's just like the really cutely designed ghost meeples, and each one is different. And it's just like a lot of thought went into this, and it came out really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great game. The ghost dice just got me. I was like, this seems a little silly.
Yeah. There's no reason for this to be in it other than to sell the game. But kudos, well done.
But it worked.
It worked, yeah.
Yeah, but it worked. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, got you. Cool. So that kind of wraps up our little niche number one segment. I mean, before we kind of run off and wrap up, Fritz, is there anything you're particularly looking forward to? Like, is there any kind of future conventions you're excited about? Or is there any events that are coming up? Yeah. What's happening for you? Other than your Kickstarter, other than the crowdfunder, obviously.
I've only been to one convention before, which was Gen Con last year, which was really quite the jump in feet first to conventions kind of situation. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend this year, but I'd love to go back to it eventually. So that's probably one of them. I'd also love to go to UK Game Expo eventually, but that's a little bit further for me.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of games that are currently unpublished that I'm really excited to hit Kickstarter as well from other designers. I'm not just plugging my own here.
Okay.
So there's a game called Alcatraz Escape the City. I have no idea when that's going to publish, but it's a beautifully designed hidden movement game, kind of in the same realm of Whitechapel.
Yeah.
But it's based here in San Francisco, which really excites me.
Yeah, cool.
And then there's Galactic Cruise, created by two of probably the best designers that I know or have ever played a game by. It's being produced by Kinson Key Games. Also have no idea when it will come because I thought they were going to publish it because it was in great shape. And then they're like, actually, we can make it better. And they just went back and rewrote a bunch of it, which kudos to them. That's awesome. And it's going to be beautiful once it comes out. And then let's see what else is. There's a game that was recently renamed. I don't know what it's called now, but it was called Biomorph.
Okay.
And it's by a designer called Falk Hansel. And it's just this beautiful legacy style dungeon crawler game set in this post-apocalyptic world where you're these telekinetic beings in the last sanctum of humanity, controlling these biomass creatures that you're able to create with your mind. And it's just really weird and wonky theme, but it works beautifully well. The artwork is fantastic, and the designer has really poured himself into it.
Nice.
I'm also super excited for Harrow County to be fulfilled. It hit Kickstarter last year. I met the designer at Gen Con, and it just looks like a really cool game. I didn't get to try it, but I'm really excited to get my copy.
Nice.
None of the dice are glow in the dark.
No. You've learned your lesson. For now, yeah. Yeah, it's all good. But now it's great. Okay, so it's really good to kind of hear you excited for some of the other kind of designs by other designers as well. And yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye out for those or an ear out for those as we learn more throughout the upcoming months and years. So before we kind of jump off, Fritz, is there any questions you want to ask of us? Is there anything you want to put forward to the Whose Turn Is It Anyway podcast team?
Yeah, sure. I think when we were on TTS, y'all said that you were probably going to make your way to UK Game Expo, and you even had a special pass or something, which is exciting for you. Is there anything in particular you're looking forward to there?
Yeah, this is our first year basically getting press passes. Being completely honest, we've been our podcast started it's about a year ago, wasn't it, Davey? So So yeah, to go to the UK Games Expo with press passes for us is like, it's a nice little milestone for us, because
I literally said last year. Was it last year? I was like,
yeah.
Do you know what would be really cool?
Yeah.
And what I really want to aim for is if we get some press passes.
If we could do it, and we've got them, and we are going up to the Thursday night preview show, and this is something I don't think any of us have ever done that. And so basically, they'll condense the show from the exhibitors that are going to be there over the weekend into a 3-hour segment on the Thursday night before the show starts on the Friday. So you get to kind of have it's like having a tapas meal, isn't it? So it's kind of like I'm having a little taste of this designer over there, there's a game over there, and you can get to kind of check out and network with people before the show starts and before the kind of general public rolls in on the Friday morning. And that, for me, I'm actually really looking forward to that, because a lot of the time at Expo, and I'm sure it's the same at Gen Con and various other conventions like Essen, it gets busy. Like these publishers and the designers who are, trying to kind of push their games and designs to people, they're getting crowds of people, they're demoing, and it's sometimes quite hard to get the time to meet those people. So for me, that's definitely one of the things I'm looking forward to from a podcast side of it. But actually, from a personal side of it, it's more just being away with my friends, to be honest. And it's, we play games together a lot, and that's brilliant. But we don't always hang out as like friends, having meals and drinks and things like that. And I think that's always a highlight for me, where we kind of get away from work, we get away from our adult responsibilities, and we get to sit down and just have fun. And I'm up for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It's also nice talking to a lot of the designers and developers. I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
It's obviously where we first met Jackson and Paull last year for Flick Fleet. And it's just really nice. It's the whole atmosphere. Everyone's kind of getting together and seeing all these little games, like how they've came to fruition from people's minds. It's just, for me, it really ticks a lot of boxes, because that design process I've always found interesting, and how people slot mechanics together, and how suddenly you see a little bit of mechanic from this game and a little bit of mechanic from this game, and they've been interwoven into this kind of nice tapestry, as you used to say that word, but of a game. And I enjoy it.
I think
the 2 games I'm looking forward to is Darwin's. I want to play Darwin's Journey, if it's going to be there, and I want to play Earth. Which are both games that have already been released, but there's a lot of buzz around them, and I'm hoping that there's going to be some copies that I can either get hold of or play. So,
well, I think Earth's wangled its way into our gaming group's collection somewhere.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So if we don't get a chance, I'm sure we will very soon. But it's for me. I like doing chats with yourself, Fritz. It's just great to get a peek behind the curtain. Like we're gamers, right? At the end of the day, we're a gaming group who we sometimes come to the mic and we have a bit of a chat about what we're doing, what we're playing. But we're gamers at our hearts, and I think for especially for me, especially for you, Davey, I know you get a kick out of it. It's just speaking to people like yourself who have done it. They've gone through the evolution, they've had the idea, they've brought the product to life, and now you must be so like excited that your crowdfunding is literally a month away, and you're going to release your baby into the wild. And and that's a massive deal. That is such a huge achievement already, to even get it refined enough to that point where it is ready. And don't get me wrong, I know there's a lot of hard work that goes into getting it to this point, and there will be a lot of hard work afterwards because it's a whole different set of challenges, right? Making something that's digital, or like you said, from Excel into a physical product. But very exciting, so exciting. I'm really pleased for you, and I hope you have every success with the campaign and the game, because it really truly deserves it. So there we go. No problem. Well, we'll kind of probably say our goodbyes here then, Fritz. So I just want to say massive thank you. Like, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and it's been great having a chat with you. And good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Thanks
for
Fritz.
playing my game and giving me the
Anytime.
time.
Thank you all for listening to this episode. Please review, like, subscribe, and get involved. Get engaged with us. We love it when we talk to our listeners. And all we ask of you, actually, is that you share this with someone that you know, someone that you think might enjoy listening to this episode, so that they can have a turn with the podcast. But if you want to get in contact with us, you can do so by the usual handles, which is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Board Game Geek, and of course our email, which you can find the details in our show notes. And until next time, we'll be back again with the main episode. So, whose turn is it anyway?